Okay, this is video 2 for Introduction to Excel. So we did a little bit last time with how cells work, kind of how to move around, a little bit with the fill handle and those kinds of things. So now we're going to talk a little more about how to calculate things in Excel. And we're going to start with the most basic. The most basic would be using Excel like a calculator, the same way you'd use any other calculator. Now, the one thing you need to know when you're writing a function, or if you want the spreadsheet to actually perform something within a cell, it must always start with one of two things. It must always start with either an equals or a plus sign. Those two signs or symbols tell Excel that whatever comes after that is something you want Excel to actually do. So from that point, you can do math the same way you do any other type of math. So you want to add two numbers. I want to add, so if I hit equals and I do 78 plus 95 and hit enter, it's going to do the actual math for me. But notice, I want you to notice something though. It says 173 here, and that is the answer, but the underlying function still stays there. So it still says equals 78 plus 95. So you can always see the underlying function as to what happens. You can do anything you want, any math you want. 152 minus 96 is 56. And again, the same kind of thing. 85 divided by 6. That didn't work. And why that didn't work is because I didn't put equals or plus before it. If you just type a function in without putting equals or plus, then the computer will not, Excel doesn't know to do anything with it unless you put an equals or plus sign first. So equals 85 divided by 6, and then it will come up with the answer. So you can add, subtract, multiply, divide, just like you can on any other calculator. But the way that you can really use Excel more efficiently and more effectively is if you do this on a larger scale, and if you use cell references rather than actually typing numbers in. So I'll show you what I mean. So I'm going to build just a fake grade book here, just because it's a good example of a data-driven table. So we have student 1, and if you remember from the prior video, I can take my fill handle and just fill down for 15 students. I'll have assignment 1. If you don't remember, it's that corner little box when it turns into a smaller filled in plus sign, and go over to assignment 10. Something else hopefully notice is that it's so much quicker than typing all these things. I mean, you can, especially if things come in patterns, you can easily make something in a very short time frame. So let's say student 1 got, let's just make this easier so we don't have to do a bunch of typing. I'm going to say student 1 got a 45% on the first test, or the first assignment. And then I'm going to make this just go up by 2% so that I can fill handle this over. So 47, 49%. And then if I highlight those 3, I can use a fill handle to go all the way over. Just going to continue the trend going up by 2% at a time. And then the next student, what do you say, 25%? I think these are not great grades, but, and then this one is going to go up by 5% at a time. And I'm just making these things up, 35%, so on. So I can build this spreadsheet relatively quickly. And as a matter of fact, what you can do, if you want to, I don't want to build all these, so I'm just going to make all the rest of them the same. Let's say that 35%. And I want that to be the same throughout. So all 35%. And then let's make these go up by 4%. So 39%, 33%. Fill handle that down. Use a fill handle to pull that down. And then I can actually do all these all at once. So you can see just based on this that you can do a lot of data entry, assuming there's a pattern to it, in very little time if you're able to do this. So the other way, and the way that I really highly recommend you utilizing Excel, is using actual functions. So we're going to go through some of the most basic functions here. I know we wouldn't usually total averages, but I do want you to see the total or the sum, because that's one of the most basic functions I want you to know. So first thing, what I can do, if I want to reference every single one of these cells and not use an actual function, again, every time I need a calculation, you put equals in there to start with. And what I can do is just reference every single one of these cells individually and add them all together. It takes quite a bit of clicking around or quite a bit of movement, but you can do that. So if I want to add 45% plus 47% plus 49%, I would just simply click on the cell. This one is B5. Notice when I click, it actually puts a cell reference in there. And then plus C5 plus D5 plus E5 plus F5 plus G5 and so on. I'm just hitting plus in between each one and so on and so forth. Now that I've gotten the last one, I can just hit enter and it comes up to a percentage or total percentage, which like I said, doesn't really make any sense in this case, but that would be the sum. Now here's the other really cool thing about this. Excel, when you put this in this top cell, like it is, if you copy this down, if you use the fill handle to copy this down, it doesn't just copy B5, C5, that kind of thing. Instead, what it does is it assumes that, oh, you want to know the total of this row. So if I fill handle it down, it's going to just give me the total of this row and this row and this row. So what would be 15 different times adding 10 different assignments, so 150 addition problems roughly, I can do, and I can either click and drag, or there's another little shortcut you can do. You can double click this fill handle button. And now I've just done 150 calculations in half a second or less, that quickly and that easily. So cell referencing is a really big deal, is a really important thing that no one understands. And all you do is hit equals and then reference whatever cell you want, put in any mathematical equation that you want to be in there. You can do it however you want. You want to subtract all these from one another. That minus that minus that minus that doesn't really matter. Obviously, it'll come out to a negative number. I can do it for all of them. But what's important is that you understand that what this is taking when I do that cell reference is it says B5 here, but really what B5 represents is 45%. The other cool thing about this, though, is if I go and change one of these, let's say this is 95% now, it automatically recalculates my answer here. Why this is extremely important, and I believe to be extremely valuable in working through problems, working through personal budgets, working through any of that kind of stuff, is because when you use a regular calculator and you go back and you look at your numbers and you find an error, you have to start all over again. So let's say that all these numbers were right. Let's say all these numbers were right and I go through and I look and there's just one wrong. With a regular calculator, I've got to go back and recalculate and type in everything all over again. Whereas in this case, if I'm using cell references, all I got to do is go back and find the problem one. Like this one's supposed to be 89%, that was wrong, and now it's supposed to be 89. And it calculates it for me over here without me having to do any additional work. I don't have to go retype in all these other 8 or 9 assignments and re-add everything to figure it out. I don't have to do any algebra. I don't have to take one out, add one back in or anything. It's just much simpler and quicker to do if you do that. So that's the long version of how you add and subtract. You could also multiply and divide, obviously, in that way. Then there are other functions in Excel that use words. I'm going to show you the function bar first. So up here, where you can see where your underlying formula is, there's this button that says f of x, a function button. It says insert function if you hold your mouse over it. If you click on that, it brings up a box that is, especially for new people, really valuable to use because it gives you a list of different formulas that you can use. You can search these formulas by clicking in a description. So if I wanted to say I want to add something, hit add, and you see that these all come up and it gives you an example of what they do. The function I'm going to use first is called sum, and it's one of the simplest functions and one of the most useful functions. It's exactly what it sounds like. It's to add things together. So why this is easier is because I don't have to click in every single cell. Instead, I can highlight a group of cells and add them all together without having to worry about doing, click, 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 plus, click, plus. So I'm going to click the sum function. I'm going to hit OK. And then what this box does is it walks you through what to do. So it says adds, and it tells you what it does, adds all the numbers in the range of cells, and the range would be the start of the cell, in this case B5 through K5. And then so the way that this works is that it puts within that function all of your different numbers from B5 to K5. And how they represent that in Excel is if they have a colon in between it, that means B5 through K5. And it would do that entire row. You can do obviously this with columns, you can do it with entire boxes or groups. But in this case, we're just wanting to sum B5 through K5. And it already has it in there. And I'm gonna hit OK. And that's what the function looks like. Now I'm going to take out, I neglected to take out the old function. So equals sum B5 through K5, 632% is the answer. You can see how much quicker this would be rather than adding every single one. So I'm gonna, instead of using the function box this time, I'm gonna type it out, equals sum. Something else you always need to know about functions is that when you are using functions with words like this, sums and averages and those types of things, you always have to have parentheses. Effectively, when I type this function in, that function will perform that function on whatever comes directly after it parenthetically. So it has to be in parentheses right after the function, and then it will perform that function. So equals sum, that's the function, but then I have to do an open parenthesis, and then it tells me, and it gives you clues here about what to do. Sum, and it says, okay, number one, number two, and so on. So I can click number one and drag over all the way to the end, and then I need to close my parenthesis to put that function into its place, and then hit enter, and it will sum all of those numbers in that row. The good news is, I know it sounds complicated and probably difficult, but the good news is those things hold true with all functions. So no matter what, there's hundreds of thousands of functions, hundreds of thousands, there's hundreds or thousands, I'm not sure how many, but there's a lot. And that statement about equals and then the function and the parentheses holds true for all of them. So you never have to relearn that that's how the format goes. It's just a matter of what goes in those parentheses that changes, and obviously the word for the function that changes. So similarly, if I wanted to run an average, which is more important in a grade book anyways, I'm going to go to the F of X button, and I'm going to say I want to find something that does an average. And look, there's just a function actually called average. So I'm going to hit average. And here's something you got to be careful of. Now, it's going to automatically say, okay, you must want to average everything to the left. And I do, except for I don't really want to average this sum. So notice that right here it says that it is B5 through L5. Well, B5 through L5 means I'm going to also average the sum in there. And then that's not the average of all the grades if I average the sum too. So I'm going to change that to K5. And so now it'll be correct. So now I'm averaging B5 through K5. And I hit OK, and that's done, 63%. And again, you can either click and drag, or a quicker way is to use the fill handle and double click. Now, just so you know, that double click, how that works is if you have cells already over here, you notice it stops there. That's because it goes down to the last line of data that it has. So that'll work for any size of data, but it won't go beyond where your last row of data is in the column before. Or you can just use the fill handle the other way too. I think that is enough for this particular video. We'll continue with video 3, and we'll look a little more at different formulas and kind of show a little more about how to build a little bit more intricate functions.